Welcome to today's episode, Lead and Scale podcast. I want to welcome everybody to this wonderful time today. And by the way, as you know, it's all about leadership, it's all about scaling capacity. So, Lead and Scale podcasts is focused on leadership. And as we know, organizations grow to the level of their leadership capacity. And sustainable expansion happens when leaders build systems and make performance repeatable. Today in our world, and especially in Africa, one word is very rare: scale. Many times we talk about growth because of increase in the activities, increase in revenue sometimes. And there are many arguments on capacity building, many arguments on what it really means to have sustainable growth. This is one of the challenges we are facing altogether. So today, we're going to move forward on this conversation, lead and scale, what it really means to scale capacity, to scale leadership, to scale our processes, to scale our systems, to create the right structure that is sustainable when it comes to leadership capacity. And today, we have a wonderful guest, okay, who is going to be sharing our journey, with us, especially in the place of leadership capacity and in the place of, scaling leadership across functions. And the person have here today with me is the group managing director of NICET Group in Abuja, Barrister Annabel Kamuche. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I hope you are doing okay too.
Well, I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome, and it's been a great day for me thinking about some of those things that we're going to discuss here today, especially with your role, especially with some great stories that we're going to hear from you today, and all those powerful contributions to, in this space of leadership. So thank you once again. It's a real privilege to be here and to have this conversation with leaders who care about building organizations that last. So thank you once again. Um,
Thank
Real quick, I've spent my career working with executives across public sector, private institutions, and faith-based organizations. And one pattern keeps repeating itself. Growth is common. I hear about growth everywhere. People talk about growth because of their increase in revenue, increase in activities, or maybe they have more people around them. And scale is rare. It's one of those things that we don't really talk about. I think now more people are talking about it, especially in the private sector. So I would love us to kind of get into the conversation to talk really, really deep about leadership and scalability because many organizations expand, few build systems that continue working when the founder or the executive is not in the room. So I'm excited for today's discussion. If I may ask, to get us started, if you would like to kind of share a little bit about your career journey and what really shaped your leadership as a person.
Okay, thank you very much, Wale, and good afternoon again. For me, it's been an it's been a very interesting journey, career journey that I've had. Having left a particular sector to a different sector and have succeeded by the grace of God. It's actually been an incredible journey. So I I I am a lawyer by training. I was called to the Nigerian bar in 2007. I went further to become an international mediator, arbitrator, and negotiator, and also a fellow of the United Nations conflict analyst. So I'm a conflict analyst, by the way, and later got a master's in total management system. However, in 2013, I decided to let leave the law profession and go into an uncharted waters, agricultural sector, and have been in the agricultural sector or the agricultural space from 2013 to date, having gone through different subsectors within the sector, from primary production to both crop production, livestock, aquaculture, poultry, went into a bit of export before going into compliance. And having, by the grace of God, led the founding the company that is the first indigenous certification body in Nigeria. For me, it's one that I will be proud to say this is how God has helped me. However, it's not without a lot of scars and wounds that when you see sometimes, that helps you to be able to tell your story of how you were able to move from one level to another level to another level. For me, my driving force has always been nothing is impossible. So in my life growing up, I decided that there is nothing I set my mind to do that can be impossible. So I deleted two things from my dictionary, impossibility and cannot. So I don't believe there's anything that is impossible. I also don't believe that there is anything that cannot be done. It only takes a willing person to get it done. And it doesn't matter how long I will have to be at the door to keep knocking on that door. One day, something has to give. It's either I finally get the door down or I'll pass through the wall. But eventually, of course, something has to give. And I also will not take away the place of divinity in all of this because I'm a very spiritual person. I believe nothing happens in the physical if it hasn't been ordained and worked out in the spiritual. So I believe it is God that orchestrates the steps of a man. So as I take my journey, I also listen to the spirit to be sure that I am not walking on that journey alone because there is how far your strength can take you. But if there is a supernatural behind you, it helps you to be able to move even faster and further than your strength would ever have carried you. So that's what happened to me when I transitioned from legal practice into agriculture. And within the agricultural space, I moved from agriculture, just basic setting up of farms, managing farms, to a bit of export, um, you know. By the way, I was instrumental to the drawing up of the roadmap for the share sector in Niger State and the share policy for Niger State, and then moving from there into compliance and having established the first indigenous certification body in Nigeria and have been in the compliance space for the past 8 years, championing compliance and facilitating export of Nigerian products through compliance international standards and certification as proof of compliance, where a lot of people did not even understand what international standards were at the time, and even certification, what voluntary certifications are. And today we are where we are, where people are talking of voluntary certifications, they are speaking of compliance. We have a lot of people now coming into the space. The market is requesting for products, and all of that is, for me, a heartwarming improvement of what we have done. And just recently, we opened NISAT Rwanda, trying to scale up. Yeah, and we are in the process of setting up NISAT Côte d'Ivoire, where we would also want to use NISAT Côte d'Ivoire and Rwanda to service East Africa, while using Nigeria as a base to service West Africa. all geared towards facilitating export of African products into the international market through compliance to international standards. So that's my story.
Wow. Wow, that's really, really awesome. Thank you very much for sharing your story. And in fact, you've actually touched some other things I thought about that I wanted to ask you about the capacity of the group and how scaling is happening within. So we're going to talk
Mm,
about that. And I just thought about your journey. Wow, that's interesting. The transition, from your background into agriculture and how you have been able to adapt to go through that change. That's, it's not just about the background, it's about, positioning yourself and then growing with that change to
mhm,
create
mhm,
scalability within the institution itself. Wow,
mhm,
that's interesting. I believe we're still going to get more from some strategies and some systems that you have put in place in your
mhm,
particular role. Because when you look at companies, government, movement, and one thing that I've observed is that endurance always come from the repeatable structures, leadership pipelines, and cultural clarity. Those are very critical. And of course, I've seen that in your journey with some of the things that you have talked about, but we're going to deep into the process, how all those things really happened. And you said something that I think I personally appreciate, divinity. Uh,
mhm,
there is nothing we can do outside God. I strongly believe that. And he started leadership. He initiated leadership. He initiated scaling.
mhm,
Everything is spiritual. I strongly believe that. So thank you for actually saying something about that because I believe that without God, we can't be talking about leadership today because he
mhm.
started everything.
We
So,
started everything,
started
yes.
everything. So, my journey moved um, from asking, how do I do well, to how do I build environments where leaders or where leadership reproduces itself. This
Mhm,
started for me 15 years ago. And you said something about how you transition from one unit to another unit, how you started building, cropping and all of that. Um, I grew up in a farm. I was on the farm and I learned a lot about crops, right? About how plants grow and many things that happen on the farm. Because my father was going to the farm when we were growing up, many, 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 many years ago, and I learned so much. In fact, some of my leadership lessons today, I learned some of them when I was there on the farm. So it's very
mhm,
interesting that you're talking about some of the things that we have done practically across the unit. I want us to talk about the shift that happened, that shift that changed, the shift you had when you moved into agriculture, basically. How did you adapt? I'm looking at the transition. So did you find everything just easy for you?
So, I would want to say, as lawyers are social engineers,
Hmm.
and that's why people say so. Lawyers refer to themselves as learned, because as a lawyer, you are able to um have a bit of knowledge of almost everything. And then I will not again take away the place of divinity.
Mhm.
Because if God sends you, he will empower you. So he sent me. I tell people that for me, being in the agricultural space is not just a passion, it's a calling. It's a calling by God to live where is a calling by God to live where I am and then move into an uncharted waters because he had a plan. So he spoke to me and said, look, when I was asking, there are places of inquiry. This is not a spiritual platform, but in telling your story, especially if your story is intertwined with spirituality, you cannot detach the two of them. So in telling your story, you will find yourself also speaking a lot about spiritual things. So during my prayer of inquiry, which I do once in a while, just to be sure that I am in tune, I heard God first time ever, silent voice say agriculture when I was saying, what do you want me to do with my life? Even though I was already successful in my own way as a lawyer, I had a very good practice. And I heard this agriculture and I stood up and said, hell no, I'm not going to do that. Because in 2013, there were not a lot of young people who were in the agricultural space. Agriculture in itself was just almost simultaneous to poverty, because everything about agriculture at the time, the people, the pictures that depict agriculture was just, poverty, dirty looking clothes, carrying a hoe and all of that. But God sent me there and gave me peace. So one of the things I tried to do was not to take a position of I know it all.
Mm,
I humbled myself to learn. So I began to learn from those who know
mm,
and began to ask questions. I've always been one who liked to ask a lot of questions. I'm not ashamed to say I don't know, right? And I kept asking questions, even from people. You realize that the people who have the knowledge of agriculture in Nigeria are not those who went to school. Because unfortunately, those who spent 5 years in agriculture in school know the theoretical aspect of agriculture. But those who have gotten their hands dirty, who were not opportune to go to school, are the experts who really have practical knowledge of agriculture. And God put a lot of them on my way. And they always get fascinated when I ask questions and I'm saying, look, I want to know, teach me, and blah, blah. They will laugh initially, maybe because they didn't know I was coming from a law background. They will laugh and say, I know you know, but you just wanted to know whether we know. So sometimes I'll just leave them in their ignorance and say, okay, yes, I want to know if you know. And then, they kept teaching me. And then sometimes it comes by the spirit of knowing. It just comes into your spirit what needs to be done. And because, again, I am also very entrepreneurial, because maybe because of my background, being from the Southeast and all of that, part of what, I, I, the gene I acquired from my parents, is the gene of being entrepreneurial. So I see opportunities in everything. When people talk problems, I see every problem as an opportunity
mm.
to create solutions that will bring business and bring money and bring profitability. So the difference between myself and the people who I met there was that I wasn't looking at the problems. I really didn't care about the problems. What I was caring about is, yes, these are the problems. You are singing these problems as though they are mountains that cannot be surmounted. I am looking at the solutions and saying, let me provide you a solution, and then I'll provide you a solution because I'm happy providing that solution, and you pay money to me because I am providing you a solution. So that is the kind of mindset I went into in the agricultural space. And God has helped me that for every gap that I find in the sector, I've been able to create some sort of solution that we are using to make profits today. And then by the time people are waking up to those solutions, we have taken a first commerce advantage.
Wow, 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 wow. I am really excited. Wow. I'm impressed about your journey. Thank you very much for sharing, especially um that those systems that you actually followed as a person. when it comes to
mhm,
personal development, personal capacity building, you said something that I think is important, and I don't want anybody to miss this, that you are always curious. You are not bothered about asking people questions, especially things you don't know. And
mhm.
you don't sit down on your horses and then feel like, you know what, this is who I am. Who are you guys there? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you don't carry your titles in your head because you see leadership as responsibility. You
Exactly.
see meaning to your role. You see it as an opportunity to contribute to something, to contribute
Mhm,
to legacy, to solve problems, to add value, and to
mhm,
create
mhm,
impact. In
mhm.
asking, asking people questions, getting to understand the details of the work in order to add more value. And
Yeah.
I think some of these things you shared are very important when it comes to leadership and scaling leadership, because you can't help people you don't understand. You can't help people you don't know. And
Mhm.
as you ask those questions, I'm very sure you must have learned some things from those people who don't have the opportunity to go to school, to be in the four walls of classrooms, to learn the formal education, and all of that. You must have moved from career to calling. Like you said, you mentioned that this is not a career, this is a calling for you. And
Yes.
there is a
Yes.
difference between the two. And the moment you are called to do something to create impact, it becomes a lifetime journey. It's not just something you're transitioning into. You are there to create excellence and to create impact that can never be forgotten. So that will take me to another aspect of our conversation, because someone that is career driven typically ask some questions. And especially when you move from career to calling, some
Mhm,
of your questions will definitely change. You are not asking, when am I going to be promoted? You are not asking, what is my next level about? No, you are not asking those questions. You are asking questions about legacy. You are asking legacy focused questions. You are not asking what role is next. You are not asking, how am I, evaluated, and
mhm,
thinking about all of that. People who are oriented, that's what they focus on basically. But someone who
mhm,
focuses on calling, focuses on operating from the place of calling, the questions are different. And I want us to look into those questions. They ask questions like, what problem am I built to solve? You talk about some of them here, focusing on
mhm,
the problem and getting to learn about the root causes and how to add value and how to contribute. They ask questions like, who benefits from my obedience to this
mhm.
assignment? Because
Yeah.
you were obedient, you said you heard it and then you moved into it. So you did not move into it blindly. You were not ignorant about your movement, about your transition. And last,
Mhm, mhm,
people who focus on calling, they ask questions like, what must exist after I am gone? Probably
exactly.
maybe in this role. What impacts? What are the things that people will be talking about? Um,
Yeah.
what am I going to leave inside these people? And
What will
those
I be remembered for? Yeah. Mhm,
Exactly. What those are the questions they're asking. So I'm going to now ask you another question, which I would love you to kind of help us about this particular aspect of transition that you had, especially in the area of calling, area of clarity to direction. Of direction that you've had in the past,
mhm,
in your looking at your operating system, personal operating system, and then organizational operating system. I usually tell people that you can't grow a team, you can't grow an organization, you can't grow a system if you have not grown yourself. Transformation
mhm.
starts with personal transformation, not a group transformation, not a
Yeah.
national transformation. So that would take me to another question about leadership pipeline. What do you, I mean, what do you see about building people, investing in people, and creating a leadership pipeline that grow itself and then help people to continue to expand leadership across business units and functions?
Okay, so for me, I believe that every good leader would want to multiply themselves and pour out themselves into a lot of people. And how do you pour yourself into people? Is when you make them believe in your vision. Because people cannot assimilate what they cannot understand. And people will not understand what they don't believe in. They
Yes.
have to believe you. Then they have to begin to look. They have to be focused on you to try to get what you carry. And then you also have to have a willing spirit to release as much as you can into people so that when you are gone, if God helps you, you can have 1,000 of you doing the same pattern, maybe even more than what you have done. There are a lot of leaders today who see life as a competition, as against seeing life as impact.
Mm.
So you die today, nobody can say, I became this. I moved from, not about giving people money. I don't believe in giving people money. I believe in teaching people how to become. Because you give money today, money will finish. But if you teach them how to become, then they become, it's like when Christ said, you will become like me. He didn't give you money, but he taught you how to become like him. So when you find people who believe in you, then you begin to teach them how the values that have made you you by telling them the stories of what they didn't know existed before they met you. People celebrate people's success without looking at their story.
Yes.
You have to be able to understand the story and the journey where that person came from to where at the to the point where you met the person and then where the person is going to, so that you know you don't just wake up and you have arrived here, that there is a process. And that is one of the things that agriculture has done for me. It has taught me that everything grows organically,
Mhm.
that you cannot plant something today and hope to harvest it the next day, that there is processes and procedures that must be followed. Life is about process. Life is about procedure. Life is about sequential procedure on how things ought to be done until you get to your final destination. Because you plant a seed today, your hope is whether it's a 120 days cycle, cropping cycle, or even 3 years cropping cycle, you're going to harvest eventually, but you have to nurture it. So every day you have faith that is going to end with a harvest. So you go there, you nurture it. That is the way people should be able to keep nurturing themselves at the place of learning, at the place of capacity building, at the place of self-development, until you become that thing that when you close your eyes, you're able to see in your mind's eye
Mm.
of who you really want to be. So if today I want to be a Dangote, I'm not looking at what Dangote is today. I'm looking at where is Dangote coming from? What were the principles that he had to follow to get to where he is now? I will look at what are even the mistakes that he made, because sometimes the greatest lesson in a man's life is in the mistakes that they made, so that you too do not make the same mistake. Because if you are following the footstep, you might end up making the same mistakes they made if you do not already identify those mistakes and find ways of mitigating and ensuring that you don't make the same mistakes. So for me, I see a successful person, I feel there is something this person carries I want to get. I want to hear your story. Don't tell me about the successes alone. Tell me of your failures. Tell me of the mistakes that you made. Tell me of how you were able to mitigate them or correct them, if any. And if there is none, let me now take time to look at it and say, okay, these were the mistakes. How do I ensure I don't repeat the same mistake as I walk through this road and all of that to get to where I want to get to? So for me, um, leaders who are called, not those who see leadership as a career. Leaders who are called are moved by impact. They
Yes.
are moved by the thought of what will I be remembered for after I have finished from this one and I'm gone. Will the bell of the things that I've done be ringing in time and eternity? That is the most important thing. So it's beyond money. It's beyond popularity. It's beyond, you know, even the applaud that
Yes.
the world gives you. It is impact that you yourself know that you have created, both in the solutions that you have been able to provide, but more even especially in the people you have been able to affect their life positively.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very much for this. You said something here. Ooh, that really got me thinking because many times when I have conversations with leaders, especially when I'm kind of in a room with leaders, maybe managers, especially middle management people, one of the things I hear from them is that they don't really care, they don't really care. That's the tone. That's the tone that I see in most of the things they talk about.
Mhm,
They also lead the way they have seen leadership. They lead
mhm,
the way
mhm,
they have seen leadership, the way they are led,
mhm,
that's how they also lead because they believe
mhm,
that that's how it should be. You talk about
mhm,
vision, that most people don't understand, they don't follow if they don't understand the vision. And
mhm,
and vision is in phases. You
mhm,
thank you very much for actually talking about that aspect of when you are called into leadership, not when you are placed into a leadership position without understanding
mhm.
the responsibility that that carries.
Yeah.
Because many people in Africa today, as I travel around the world and especially talk to many Africans, I see that we carry that title. For example, if I forget to add someone's title to the name, you may likely be in trouble for not putting that title.
Yeah. Uh,
That is
yeah.
common in Africa. Why? Because
Mm.
we place more value on the title than responsibility.
Yes, yes, true.
So we focus on that, and whatever we focus on expand. And those are the things that other people are seeing and they are learning from. So they are also becoming it. Just like what
Mhm,
you
mhm,
said, you are becoming it. So before I move into the next question, which you already said something about it, and I'm happy that you said something about it, mistakes in leadership.
mhm,
Before I get into that, you cannot scale faster than faster than you develop people. You can't.
mhm,
If
mhm,
you don't
mhm,
develop people,
mhm,
you can't scale because you get scaling your scaling strength from people that you have impacted, people you have developed. And the
mhm.
moment expansion outpaces leadership capacity, execution quality drops, it reduces
True.
drastically. So that will take us into the next conversation of mistakes. Because many times, one of the things I see in boardrooms that have been opportunity to be is that top leaders love to talk about their mistakes. And I've also seen some leaders who don't like to talk about their errors. They like to talk about success. They don't
Mhm,
focus, they don't want others, they don't talk more about their mistakes, their errors, how they missed it, and then how they move from that error into impact and the level where they are today to help
mhm,
them. So that those who are growing won't see themselves as, this man is so perfect, this woman is so perfect, this my oga,
they are very infallible.
so perfect, right? So they don't want to
Yeah.
be vulnerable about
Mm,
those things, which I understand. Sometimes some of them are afraid, maybe because of their own personal way, I mean, of seeing things. However, there are patterns when it comes to scaling leadership, and I want us to talk about that. Two mistakes that I would love you to kind of help us explore today. Mistake number one is expanding before standardizing. I've seen
mm,
I've seen that many times, and I've also seen situations whereby situations staying indispensable. I've seen
mm,
that many times. If everything is important, must pass through my office. Everything must pass through me before
mm.
anything is done. So if I'm not around, everything should stop. Okay. So in that kind of environment, scaling will be very difficult. Okay.
I
And
agree.
because eventually
Mm,
everything will suffocate. So I want
mm.
you to just quickly share with us what are the maybe some mistakes that maybe you made in your place of leadership in the past, and then you learn from them, and maybe those lessons are helping you today.
Okay, so let me first answer the two questions that you have asked about the mistakes. When it comes to the first mistake, the mistake of, everything has to pass through me, like you micromanage things, right? It, for me, leaders who micromanage things are afraid to lose control. They are control freaks. They are afraid to lose control. But because you want to micromanage, it then becomes difficult to scale because the lifeline of that business is tied around you. And that is why sometimes you see big establishments. As
Mm,
soon as the owner of the establishment passes, the entire work of maybe 30 years, 40 years just goes down the drain
mm,
because the arrowhead has not been able to have been micromanaging that establishment and
mm.
has not been able to allow the establishment to be independent of him or her.
That leader.
That's number one. And then the second one you asked, I can't remember now. Yeah,
Expanding,
standardization.
expanding before.
Also, a lot of people do not have a standard operating procedure. You want to have a standard operating procedure that whether you are there or not,
Mm,
this is the way things ought to be done. On Mondays, this is the way things ought to be done. On Tuesdays, and sometimes it's even good to document it in a handbook, for instance. And anybody who comes into the organization gets that handbook and knows what the governing rules of that establishment is. And then you go through it, you are sure at the point of entry that you can abide by the rules
mm,
in that establishment. We might be totally different from what you are used to, and
mm,
then you can now work with it.
mm.
That way, whether you're opening it in another country or in another state, all you need to do is because these standard operating procedures have been tested and tried, and you have done some sort of proof of concept and it works, you
Yes.
can replicate it in different states. And every time they come to an office, in fact, some people are so detailed that even in terms of the design of the office,
Mm,
you find out that the design of the office in Lagos is the same with Abuja, is the same with Port Harcourt, and all of that. Some people in terms of even colors, some people in terms of the quality of people that they employ.
yes.
They can have some standard that they cannot employ people below a certain educational qualification or people below a certain age limit, right? Or above a certain age limit because they have created a standard operating procedure that they have realized that works for them. But again, that standard operating procedure doesn't have to be static. It's dynamic. So it changes from time to time as the circumstances and the trend in the sector or the environment where you work changes, right? But it's not like 100% drift from what used to be. It can be a little addition or alteration of what used to be. but all of them must be geared towards ensuring that you deliver excellence. So for anybody who coming to work in your organization, the primary language that they first have to understand is the language of excellence. That it's either we are doing it well and excellent, or we are not doing it at all. So as you get into projects, as you relate with clients, as you move from day to day, you know that you are expected as representatives of that organization to deliver excellence, nothing less than excellence. One of the mistakes I made starting off in my career was to assume things. I really used to assume a lot. So I'll give you an instance. When we started the compliance business, because it was born out of a research. So when we did the Niger State, when we drew the map, the roadmap for the share sector in Niger State, that was when we realized that there was a huge gap. And that gap was issue of quality standard and compliance and certification. There was none in Nigeria. People did not even understand that at 2016, 2015, what compliance was, right? The difference between SPS, which is the sanitary and phytosanitary, voluntary certification, ethical certification, sustainable certifications, and all of that. And, as a person who has an entrepreneurial gene, I just said to myself, this is the business that we should go into. Let us fill that gap. But what we didn't know was that it was a sleeping market and that a lot of work needed to be done to awaken the market to get the profit. So we created the solution blindly, thinking that as soon as we launch into the market, we will get a boom.
Yeah.
And then we launched into the market for 1 year, almost 2 years. We were struggling to keep our head above the water. In fact, we were paying out of pocket for the people who were working for us with all the money we spent qualifying people and all of that, because we really did not understand the sector. Thinking in retrospect now, maybe the first thing we would have done is even go to another country and even understand the way compliance is done, the way and manner people who run compliance or certification bodies actually carry on the business of certification before coming back to now decide if it is something we want to do. Do we have the enabling environment in Nigeria to even set it up? Or is it that the foreign certification bodies haven't come to Nigeria because they know that the environment is not ready yet? And they are waiting for someone who is going to be the guinea pig and someone who will be the John the Baptist that would go to announce the coming of compliance, the coming of Christ, right?
I
And
like
that
that.
was unfortunately,
I like that.
unfortunately, again, who we were, the lone voice in the wilderness,
Mm.
talking about things that people were wondering, are these people okay? What is wrong with them? And all of that. But today, they now have realized that all we said to them from 2015, 2016 till date is where the world is tilting towards. And thanks to COVID, because COVID also made the work easy. Countries now began to become stricter in their food safety regulations and demanding additional certifications other than the SPS certifications, which now made it a bit easier. And government people now began to understand, oh, there is need for compliance. These are the issues. Can we create policies? Can we create frameworks that would ensure that people like us who are in the compliance business will thrive in Nigeria? That's the first one. And then secondly, when we started, I had a personal attachment to Abuja because I've been in Abuja with my parents since 1989. But ordinarily, Abuja should not be the base for a certification body. The reason being, there are not a lot of, if we even said, okay, you know what, we want to focus on farmers. How many farmers are in Abuja?
Yeah.
We would have gone to set up in Kano. And if we were looking at food safety certifications for processors, manufacturers, where we do good manufacturing practice, certification, food safety certifications, and the rest, it should be either the Southwest or even Kano again, because that is where your captive market is. But we said to stop Abuja for sentimental reasons. So lessons learned, you cannot use sentiment in business.
Yes.
You have to find where your captive market is. And whether you like the environment or not, create an environment that you will love. So if I didn't like Lagos, for instance, I would create a Lagos environment that I would love because I want my business to grow. So by the time I now want to launch into Lagos, I need to now go and spend some time in Lagos to be able to kickstart the business and then get people to know us and then come back to Abuja, which for me is a lot of work because for Abuja, Abuja is primarily government establishments that are here. The day you leave and they're not seeing you, they will forget you even exist,
Yeah.
right? And all of that. So
Mm.
growing now in Lagos has now become a Herculean task because I now have to, devise a means of spending time in Lagos,
Yeah.
spending time in Abuja, and ensuring that the Lagos team understands that there is more work to be done in Lagos than there is in Abuja because the market is actually in the south, in
Yeah.
the southwest,
Mm.
and even in Kano. So we are looking to now also we have a liaison office in Kano, but it's not enough because a lot of manufacturing companies are in Kano. Also, a lot of agricultural operations are also in Kano and its environs. So
Mm.
imagine that we were in Kano as a full-fledged office. We will do more than we are doing right now in Kano and the Jigawa corridor.
Wow. Wow, wow. Thank you very much for sharing that, sharing your mistake and then about those two mistakes that I talked about. I really appreciate that. In fact, one thing that I would say about what I've learned from your journey basically is that sustainability is not accidental. And I think
Yeah.
that's one mindset that I've seen in your journey.
Mm,
And understanding where the values are, and then repositioning people towards the value and letting them see the value. You're talking about Kano, you're talking about Lagos, you're talking about understanding Southwest, where the value should be positioned. And I think that's very important because it is sustainability is engineered through structure,
mhm,
succession planning, and these are the practical things that you've been talking about, and through continuous development. And
mhm, mhm.
if the next generation or the next person in line cannot run it, then it is not yet scalable.
Yeah,
So,
true.
with many things you're talking about now, um, definitely, I know that there are so many people who are following you, who are looking at, how they can take this to the next level when their own turn comes. And
Yeah,
so
true.
finally, I really want to appreciate it because we asked for 30 minutes and we've gone beyond that. Maybe in the next 1 minute, I just wanted you to kind of share something about Africa in the next 1 minute before we round up. Um, because I'm looking at Africa and I'm wondering why intentional leadership development matters in Africa. Africa has talent. Africa has great potential. Africa has the opportunity. Everybody talks about that. And many people from the West are moving to Africa now. They are thinking about establishing and investing in Africa. So I just wanted to kind of ask you about, maybe in this 1 minute, the importance of us prioritizing leadership development across functions in families, in organizations, and in nations in Africa. Because if you ask an average person in Africa now, or maybe an African living as an Africa, what is the biggest challenge in Africa? They will tell you that one word: leadership problem.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
everybody talks about the same problem every time. And I'm wondering, what are you doing today to contribute to this, to the solution of the, solving this problem where you are? by starting with personal leadership. So, what do you think, and why do you think we should focus on leadership and to help people to understand why leadership is important in order to transform people, transform organizations and businesses, whether in public or private sector?
Okay, so for in the African context, leadership has always been a problem in Africa. And it's quite unfortunate that Africa is one continent that is so blessed. And yet, it's almost like we are so cursed because the greatest curse anyone can have is not natural disaster. The
Yeah.
greatest curse a people can have is the curse of bad leadership, where people do not instill in young people the need to live a life of impact.
Mm,
You know, if today I have a child and I'm saying to the child, money is not everything, impact is,
mm,
service is, the child grows up knowing that the key word is not where will I loot money from?
mm,
The key word is what kind of impact can I make?
mm,
What kind of service to humanity can I provide? Because serving humanity will help me with impact. And having impact will give me the kind of fulfillment that money cannot buy. But unfortunately, we have lost our values as a people because now nobody cares about where you got your money from. They celebrate mediocrity. They celebrate monies that people cannot pinpoint that this is where it's coming from. They celebrate when people do even the wrong things because for them it's wuru wuru to the answer. It doesn't matter how they get to the answer. The most important thing now is to get to the answer, right? But if we need as Africans to right now be very intentional and stop seeing problems. So I'll give you an instance. A an Asian came to Nigeria to farm ginger and came to our office. And the first thing I said to him in the wake of all of that banditry in Southern Kaduna and the killings, I said, there is killings in Southern Kaduna. And he said to me, you guys are seeing problems, we are seeing opportunities. And that is what leadership does.
yes.
Leadership sees opportunities where the ordinary eye sees problems. So people are leaving Africa, going through the Mediterranean Sea, some will drown. People are going to places where tomorrow they are treated as second-class citizens, they are deported and all of that, while others are coming here into Africa to take the resources that belongs to you as given by God. So it means that there is a leadership gap. And leadership really starts with the family. It is the family, it is at the family level that parents owe to their children the honors of telling them how important leadership is and how they need to become first good people or good persons that will eventually become good leaders
Mm,
and then will eventually become people of service,
mm,
service, and then not mastery. What Africans look at is masters. They create masters who claim to be leaders, but it is service that the West has that produces the good leaders. Because when they take that office, they're not taking the office because they want to lord on you who has voted for them. They are taking that office because they have a passion that they know they have something that can provide succor to people who are suffering, for instance. They have the virtue of service. They have services that they can provide to the people who have brought them into that leadership position. And ultimately, what they want is impact. They want their name to be written in gold and all of that. But that is not what is in the mind of Africans. But remember, you cannot give what you don't have. So if parents themselves do not have those leadership qualities that make a good leader, they cannot now transfer
That's right.
leadership qualities into children, meaning that generation after generation, we will keep speaking the same language of bad leadership. Because as children grow up, they look up to their parents, and the examples their parents set is nothing close to what a leader should be. And they grow up thinking that that is the way to go because they don't know any better. What you don't know, you cannot miss.
Yeah.
You only miss what you know. So if they have never seen where leadership works or how a good leader should be, what would they use as a comparison? They only see it when they travel abroad. And there they because they've also been indoctrinated, it's a pollution of good and bad. And
Mm.
so in their head, the good is fighting the bad, and they are trying to, come to a place of compromise. Which one should I work with and all of that? That is what happens to a lot of young people. So the first thing in our schools, leadership should be taught. In our homes, parents should take it upon themselves to begin to train leaders and take responsibility. If tomorrow a man becomes a leader and doesn't do well, it's the failure of the parents because they didn't do well in ensuring that they transfer into those children the right kind of leadership quality that works.
Wow. 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 You just hit every point. Every
Thank
point. Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You
you.
just made me to remember something. I was having a conversation with my wife four, 5 days ago. And I told her, I said, the first place where our boys are going to learn how to treat women is in this house
Exactly.
because they are watching the way I treat you.
Mhm, mhm.
Even though they are not talking about it, but the way I treat you is how they will treat women when they get out there.
So that's the only way they know.
So that's the only way they know. That's what they know. And that
That's
is
the only way they
a
know.
man treat a woman because
Yes.
I'm teaching them that even though I'm not saying, hey, watch me, the way I treat your mom. So
Yeah, true.
so much for coming down to the place of family leadership. Um,
Mhm,
and in fact, if we get into that, is a big topic on its own. So I really, really appreciate that. Looking into the root causes and why we see what we see in Africa today. I really, really
mhm.
want to appreciate you because we're going to, end this podcast here now, and I believe that all our listeners have learned so much from your leadership journey, how you transitioned, how you look into legacy building, impacting people, expanding values, and looking into compounding transformation across generations, across teams, across functions. I believe that the future belongs to leaders who can build structures that multiply leadership beyond themselves. Today we're talking about AI in our organization. We have an AI company, Metrics Ops, that we help leaders to kind of understand what does it really mean to innovate and to create, and then not to be
Mhm,
living in the past and to be living in the future, what is coming. And
mhm,
some of the things you've talked about the power of vision. You've talked about creativity. Looking at some of the, you're looking at Kano, the value in Kano, you're looking at Southwest. Those are you taking the value to the people where they are for them to see what is available for them. So thank you so much for your leadership, for the opportunities that you have created in your role, and how you have shown leadership to others. I really want to appreciate that, and thank you for accepting our invitation to be on this
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you for
Lead.
having me
And
so much.
you have actually solved a lot of problems by sharing many nuggets and many part of your stories today. Thank you so much, Barrister Annabel Kamuche, once again for your
Oh,
time.
thank
And
you for having
I want to encourage everyone and all our viewers. Please just continue to live leadership where you are. Continue to grow yourself.
me.
Continue to expand your capacity. You can't give what you don't have. You've heard everything today. And in your family, focus on the people. Focus on those around you. Those around you. And don't also forget to lead yourself because that's where it starts from.
Mhm.
As well said leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing else. It's influence. We are all influencing people. So think about it before you take the action. How is this action going to influence others? Is it going to help them to become better or not to become better? So that's where we're going to stop today. Thank you so much,
Thank
guest, once
you. Thank
again.
you.
And I
Thank you
wish
so much.
you a very wonderful evening today. Thank you and thank you. All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Until
Thank
the
you.
next episode, see you later. Thank you very much.